This works through capillaries. So what we can do to become hot and cold tolerant is go through a process called capillarization. Capillaries work like a muscle. If you use them, they expand and they get useful and they work well. If you don't use them, they shrink and they become less useful in those environments. So how do we get adapted? Hi, I'm Coach Paul. Let's talk about hot and cold tolerance. So I've got a few people racing in a few weeks' time. I've got Manon going to Kona. I also have a few athletes going up to Hervey Bay 100. Both really hot races, humid, need to be heat tolerant for those. I've also had experience recently in cold, Norseman and Himalayas, Nepal. And next year we've got Extra Australia, which is Jindabyne Lake, nice and cold, 11, 12 degree water, and up Mount Kosciuszko. So the question is, how do you prepare for such races? A lot of people feel you either adapted or used to or tolerant to heat and cold, or you're not. And that is really not true. The problem is that you've got to understand how the body works with hot and cold. And how it works is that when you're into a cold environment or a hot environment, what the body does, it pushes blood to the surface of the skin to either warm you up or prevent the cold. Right? If it's a hot day and it needs to cool you down, it'll push blood through to the surface of the skin, and then the fluid leaks out as sweat, which evaporates and cools you down. If it's cold, it pushes blood to the surface of the skin to actually protect you and actually keep you warm. Right. This works through capillaries. So what we can do to become hot and cold tolerant is go through a process called capillarization. Capillaries work like a muscle. If you use them, they expand and they get useful and they work well. If you don't use them, they shrink and they become less useful in those environments. So how do we get adapted? A few weeks out from the race, getting into a hot environment, saunas, etc., isn't going to work very well. Your body needs time to adapt. The Wim Hof principles and people who follow him generally get hot and cold tolerant by exercising that, by getting into cold environments, whether it be ice baths, etc., and hot environments. Both actually work. That's why hot and cold, ice rooms and sauna actually work by modulating between the two, actually enforces the blood to the surface of the skin multiple times, causing capillarization. But it needs to be done over a period of months, if not a part of your lifestyle, like they have in Finland and Iceland and the Scandinavian countries. Healthy skin, very much temperature tolerant, because they actually go through that process. So if you're not heat tolerant, have a look at what you do during winter and during summer. If in winter you've always got the heaters on, you're always comfortable at that 24 degrees, either through clothing, reverse cycle, heating, radiators, always in that environment, always got a coat on when you go outdoors, you're not going to capillarize. You're creating a defense against any sort of cold. Your body's just going to allow those capillaries to shrink. Same in the hot weather. If you avoid the hot weather in the day that you're probably going to race in, and you always go out in the early morning, or you train in an air-conditioned environment, again, you're not going to capillarize. You're always going to be comfortable. You get to race day, you're not capillarized. You can't get the amount of blood and fluid to the surface of the skin to sweat enough to cool you down. So the process is really get used to living in different temperatures. In the winter, put up with some cold. Don't put a jumper on all the time. Yes, the first couple of weeks you're going to shiver a bit, because the shivering is essentially your body trying to warm the body up so you don't get cold. Yes, you will shiver a bit, but over time you will capillarize. and you won't be shivering anymore. Get into the cold ocean. Here, the temperature goes down to 16, sometimes 14 degrees in the Bay Redcliffe. I always do a couple of swims each year, if not a lot of swims. Yes, when you get in, it's cold, but then the body moves the blood to the surface of the skin, and within a couple of minutes, I'm not feeling the cold anymore. The after drop is maybe a bit of a dangerous thing if you're not used to it, because what will happen when you swim in the cold water, the body moves the blood to the surface of the skin to warm you up. When you get out the water, it'll absorb that blood into the bloodstream, and that's when you get the after drops. You've got to be careful of that, and maybe take some action like a warm shower, clothing to try to heat yourself up quickly. But capillarization is a thing. It's important. If you want to race in hot temperatures or race in cool temperatures, you've got it in the months before. If it's not part of your lifestyle, get into the sauna, get into ice baths, get capillarized as much as possible, because it will make you more tolerant to the heat of Hervey Bay on that run, which is notoriously hot, or Kona. And in the winter months, when the cold swims, it becomes a whole lot easier if you're capillarized.